What? I didn't just wake up. What do you mean? Anyway, that's the fan going on, that whirly sound. And so, obviously, haven't done this in a while. I've been very busy. I got some shit, preparing for some shit for next month. Anyway, so, finally got to see Evil Dead Rise, which I kept reading it as Evil Dead Rises, but I guess it's a singular, not a plural. And so I kind of went into this kind of with like the same exact like hopes and expectations as the 2013 one, because I remember going into the 2013 one as in like, all right, don't fuck this up. Like, don't make this, you know, don't make this like Eli Roth's like Cabin Fever kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, let's let's have some fun with it. Let's I don't know, like either take like either like continue on with the kind of like campiness of the movies, or let's make it serious, and they did. So this one, um, it was great. I liked that it was a little bit different. I liked that it wasn't in a cabin in the woods, although it kind of started like that. Um, and I liked obviously the practical effects, because in the trailer, just seeing like the deadite woman, I was already like, all right, I'm sold, because you can already tell that's practical effects and you ain't CGIing shit kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess I'll go into spoilers, because it's been out for a month and it's just got into like digital release right now. So I guess one, two, three spoilers. Anyway, so like I said, it started out as like a cabin in the woods thing, and I love that the cabin is like the fucking, you know, triangle thing, that you see in like Midsummer and in that Gretel and Hansel movie, where it's like, oh wow, that's IHOP. It's like, wow, that's not suspicious at all that that building is like that. You know what I mean? It's like, can you imagine like renting out a cabin and you're thinking it's gonna be like cabin shaped? You know what I mean? And you get there and it's like freaking this, this shaped, and you're like, oh, oh, we're dying. Like you would just know, like you're dying. Like this it used to be owned by a witch. That kind of stuff. Anyway, so the movie starts out. It does like this movie does a lot of like referencing to the previous stuff, which is great. But and they also did it without being like, because that's like the thing I can't stand. They did it in like an Easter egg thing. They did it. They were being Captain Obvious, but they weren't like, look at the thing. So it starts out with like, the sweeping shots in the forest kind of stuff. Which is so crazy, because now you could do it with like a drone, whereas back in the day, yeah, they had to strap a camera on a guy and have him kind of like walk. You know what I mean? Just have him like walk, and then they sped up the footage. Like I think even in Return of the Jedi, I'm like, Return of the Jedi, when they had like those forest scenes, they literally had the guy just like walk, and they sped up the footage, so it's like, and it's crazy. Now you just have like a drone even like this small, like a hamburger size of a drone, and you got like the footage, put some lo-fi, hip hop beats over, and you're like, there you go, cinematography. Anyway, so it starts off with that. It's like a guy and then two girls, and it's like they're just doing. It starts off kind of like any other horror film, like, oh my god, I scared you, oh my god, oh, well, that was gonna kill you, like that kind of shit. And then they go back into the cabin, and like the one friend is just like in the bed like this with her back to everyone, and then like the girl starts like reading, continues reading Wuthering Heights, and then the girl, like with her back towards her, is just like reading verbatim like the section of the book she's reading, and she's just like, stop. And of course then she's like, and then it begins like her deadite, transformation. And then the other girl gets like, oh my gosh, she got scalped. Wig snatched. And all that shit. Oh my god. It's just like everyone's dead. You know what I mean? I mean, the one girl, she wasn't really dead, but I mean, she would probably bleed to death with just, she like gets in the water, and then she like raises up like freaking Jesus from the water. And then while she's doing that, then the title, like then the title card comes up with her, which I thought was like, what a great way to kind of like start a movie with just like, hey, here we go, someone's infected, or however you want to say, possessed, in the Evil Dead world. And then also be like, title card. And I was like, all right, you got me. So then it does the whole like 1 day ago kind of stuff, and you're like, huh? And then I got a little annoyed because I hate that. I hate the whole like, oh, this is technically, you know, the end of the movie kind of thing that we just showed you. And I'm like, but it redeems itself because you kind of forget about that. So you're in kind of like a shitty like apartment building. The mom, who ends up being the deadite, is like, this is gonna get demolished in like a month. You know, they're gonna create like probably like, you know, expensive condos or some fucking shit like that, you know? Like, why is there upkeep to it? It's one of those, like, obviously, in real life, you wouldn't want to live there, but in the sense of, like, a movie, just, like, for, like the aesthetic kind of thing, it'd be like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool to live there. Like, you wouldn't. Like, dead as you wouldn't want to live in a place like that. People say that, and then they, like, pay, you know, $2,000 to live in, like, an entire apartment that's the size of this room, you know, and then they're just like, I'm not happy moving to New York. I thought being an influencer was gonna be so much easier. Anyway, I'll stop. They're leaving the city, thank God. Anyway, so, you know, the mom's got 3 kids, you know, 2 a little bit, like, older teenagers, and, like, 1 who's probably, like, 8, I don't know how old children are supposed to look. You know, anyway, so, you know, and she's like a tattoo artist, because you see her, like, fixing up, like, a tattoo machine and all that stuff. She's covered in tats, hot, all that stuff. And then her younger sister, stops by, and you see that earlier, she's, like, a guitar tech, kind of like a roadie. Everyone's calling her a groupie. I mean, maybe she is, like, do you, boo? But she was also taking, like, a pregnancy test at a club, and you're like, oh, girl, don't live life that fast, okay? You know? You can hoe, but, like, you know, be smart about the hoeing. I always tell people, you can hoe as much as you want, but be a little bit smarter, so you're not, like, you know, you're not there with, like, the fucking, you know, dipstick just being like, longest 3 minutes of my life, let's see what happens. Oh, you know. Anyway, so, you know, she gets the home. It's established that it's somewhere in California, because she mentions LAX and all that stuff. There's a weird bit of, like, tension, and the mom sends the kids off to get pizza and all that stuff. And then when the kids get back, you know, there's a parking garage underneath the building, which is smart to have, but also, here we go. Then suddenly an earthquake happens, because then I went, oh right, they said California. And it's like a pretty, like, it was, they said 5.5, you know, it's pretty, like, shooketh. And that created a crater, like a sinkhole or whatever, underneath the parking garage. And the son, who was a teenager, is just like, hey, I'm gonna go exploring, because that's how things happen. The kid goes exploring, because they mention how this building used to be an old bang, you know, quick exposition. So they go in there, more kind of like vault kind of stuff, because, you know, I'm a teenage boy, and I'm very curious, and it was like, yeah, and I'm just like, oh, no, man, no, I don't know. Again, I've seen one too many, you know, movies and stuff. I just don't. You know, I just don't. So, it goes in, you know, you see, like, it looks like a crypt kind of thing, but also, like, a vault, and it's kind of weird. Then he, like, digs, like, he really dug to find the book, you know, because then you see, like, oh, there's a book, and it's bound in, like, cloth, and da-da-da, and it was like, wow, I'm gonna take this, plus some, like, vinyl that's with it. It's like, okay. That part got me kind of like, because there was so much shit there, and I just felt that, like, that was the thing he took. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, wow, okay. Like, it kind of went little Cabin in the Woods thing, where, Cabin in the Woods, they had multitude of things for people to pick from the basement. This one was just like, no, this kid's just gonna go, like, just beeline to the book and stuff. Anyway, I like that there was the added vinyl thing, because the kid is, like, into music. The kid is freaking Ari at home. With the blonde hair, and then, like, with the DJ set, you know? I was looking at him, like, this is how Ari at home, like, started? I just kept thinking about, like, Ari at home. I was like, bro, you're, like, right over there. Like, we technically live near each other. I don't know exactly where he lives, but I know he's in the city, and I'm just like, bro, what are you doing? What are you opening the Book of the Dead? Come on, man. Anyway, so the kid has vinyl and all that stuff, so he, like, put it on his, like, you know, thing, and he starts playing it, and it's like, so of course he speeds it up, but then he also, like, hand spins it, and he's like, and it's like a priest being like, I am, you know, Father Sam and Cheese or whatever, and like explaining the whole thing of like, this is what we do. And there's 2 vinyls. I like how each vinyl, they're not double-sided or one-sided. Okay, and one, it kind of explains, you know, just like, it's the origin of it, this is called the Book of the Dead, and then you hear a voice in the recording, and it was like, so he's like, stop it, it's called the Book of the Dead for a reason, and I was like, hold on a second, that voice sounded familiar. I was like, wait a second. So I rewound it for a second, because I was like, one, I was like, good, someone, you know, was being logical, and was like, hey, it's called the Book of the Dead, maybe we don't fuck with it, and then I rewound it, played it again, and was just like, that's Bruce Campbell. That was Bruce Campbell. That was the Bruce Campbell cameo. You know, I was just like, okay. I mean, it works because if you think about it, like Ash has, you know, he's gone back in time, you know, Army of Darkness and all that stuff. It's all canon, you know? So I'm like, all right, he probably went back and tried to stop it. It still doesn't stop it because it's a thing that's destined. Also, in, Evil Dead lore, you know, they talk about how, like, there's 3 volumes of this, and you think about it, the first volume is the one in the Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi original one, you know, the one with, like, the face and all that stuff. And then the second one is the 2013 redo, you know. That one got me annoyed with the guy, like, because it was, like, wrapped up in a black garbage bag, and then, like, tied around with barbed wire, and the guy goes, I guess I'll just open this up, and then like all the stuff is scratched out, and it's written in English, do not read from this book, and this guy's like, huh, let me just, oh, it says habitata, oh, whoosh noises, oh, this says whoosh whoosh noises, huh, and it's like, bro, that guy was like, it's like, dude, you done doomed everyone. This one, it's like, okay, it's a teenager, it's a kid kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, that one was just some dude being like, I guess I'm here to help. Anyway, I'm gonna look at this book. A book that specifically says don't read, you know? Because again, you can look at the original one, it didn't say don't read. You're just like, I'm gonna be curious and read out of it, you know? But if things are scratched out and it says, hey, don't fucking read it, you're like, huh, I'm different. I'm gonna read it. Anyway, so the second vinyl is the priest person, whatever, reading from the book. And so he's playing off his speakers, he's playing the words that conjure it, and the kid's like, oh shit, and the kid was like, stop, and I'm sitting there being like, pull the needle, what are you hitting stop for? But as I thought it, the kid went to try to do it, and it was like, and it wouldn't allow it, so I was like, alright. Because there's parts, you know, like in movies, especially in horror films, where you're yelling, you're like, come on, the most simple thing, why aren't you doing it, you know? And people are just, it's like the whole, it's like in Saw, when Danny Glover was hiding behind that, like, column, that was like this, and he's like, oh, shoot, oh, like, it's like, what? It's like that picture of, like, Shaq hiding behind that tiny tree, and it's like that, you know what I mean? That's like me. It's like I'm hiding somewhere. It's like you can't. It's like me hiding behind my phone. You can't see me, you know. And it's like, all right, bitch. So who's a motherfucker? Yeah. So you know, it catches the mom because it's mentioned that the mom and the dad like split, and dad's a piece of shit as always. So she had like a handful of stuff, and she brought it downstairs, I'm guessing to like dump it or whatever not. And it's funny because she initially looked at the stairs, and she's like, I'll take the elevator. The one and only elevator, the entire building that has 14 flights, 14 floors, Jesus Christ. I like that it showed that the building has a 13th floor, because here in America we tend to like skip floor. It'll be like floor 12, floor 14, and it's like, but 13 still exists though, you know? Anyway, but it did show 13, and I was like, wow. But then it goes, ding, 14, and it's like, okay, so they live on the top. Anyway, she was at the basement, because all the stuff, because it came from under, the rumbling stuff, it hits the mom, you know? So she gets completely, you know, all that stuff. So it all goes into her, and because how, like, in the other movies, because it was, like, in the woods, and they do the thing where, like, vines are wrapped around the body, and then there's the vine that goes through, God, when that happened in 2013, and she's like, I was like, you know, I mean, Same thing with the original movies, but still, you know, just, oh my. But here she's being wrapped around by wires and all that stuff, and it was like, oh my god. That actress was great, you know, she was so good. I love that, like, like, in the beginning of the movie, she's, like, dyeing her hair red, so it kind of, like, works with, like, the whole look and everything. But yeah, then, like, you know, the whole, like, okay, the mom's back and she's like dead and she's like vomiting like white. It's like, oh god, she had some spoiled milk, that's disgusting. You know? She's doing that. And then she ends up dead, but then she like wakes up and she's just like, hello, I'm awake. And the neighbors like in that floor, like, so the super was living there, which I love. I think it's the super. No, it's not the super. It's just like some dude who lives there who just ends up having a shotgun because America. It's that guy, and then that family, and then there's like a young like kind of Spanish guy who you could tell was like has a thing for the mom, you know, kind of stuff, because he's like really eager to like help her all the time. He's just like, oh what? Oh, you want to find your kids? Oh, let me get my car. Come with me, you know, that kind of stuff. Anyway. So they're all trying to be like, hey, what's wrong with her? And da-da-da, you know? And then all of a sudden she starts going, all that stuff. And I love that they utilize looking through the peephole and the shots of, like, the mom just, like, completely destroying the neighbors and the neighbor's kid and all that stuff. You just see them, like, rah! Like, you just see the shot, they're like, ah! And the mom is like, boom, 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 boom. And you see a body being thrown across. And all of a sudden, it's just, you know, a shotgun. Oh, what the hell? And I love that you're just looking out the people and just seeing these events happen. And the mom is like, you know, they're like, let me in, all that stuff, you know. I thought that was very smart. Yeah, so, you know, that starts happening. The youngest has a thing called Staphany, because she, like, I think it was like something broke, and then she like cut the head off a doll and just stuck it on like this like pike kind of thing. Weird child, but you know, if your mom's like a tattoo artist, you know, and then like your brother is Ariana and your sister is a very outspoken, you know, like Gen Z feminist or something, it's like, I get it. You're gonna be like, I'm gonna put a doll head on a spike, you know, like why not? Anyway, so, like, I love that thing came to use, you know, but anyway, so, like, the Deadite stuff starts happening, and the shit starts going crazy, and then, like, the daughter gets possessed because the mom, like, vomits onto, you know, how in, like, the 2013 one with the girls, like, and then, you know, and then the daughter starts vomiting out black, and it's, like, bugs inside, she's like, and I'm like, oh, stop, gross, I'm yucky, you know? Then she starts being like, but it's funny because like before she was just kind of like talking with like regular voice, but once her Deadeye voice, she started talking kind of in baby voice, and she was like, I told you not to take the book, and it's like, oh, stop, weird. And then yeah, so they end up like, so the little girl ends up, you know, taking the head off of Staphany and, you know, with the spiky part right in there, like, oh, Jesus. You know? I mean, she survives it because she's a Deadite, because you literally have to, like, explode it to kill it, you know? It's not like zombie stuff where it's like, oh, just shoot him in the head. It's like, nah, you gotta do some dismembering, you know? As in, you know, the end of the 2013 one. But yeah, so it's all that stuff starts happening. You know, you're like, oh god, the son was okay, but then the son also got vomited on. He got vomited on red, so, you know, different color vomit, you know, I like it. Diversity, inclusivity, you know. Hashtag feminism. Anyway, so, you know, they're just, you know, and then the kid gets it, and then the sister aunt person, god, what the fuck's her, Beth, who she should play Jill Valentine, because she kind of looks like Jill Valentine in like the whatever the latest Resident Evil remake of said game that's been out forever thing. It's like she looks like the character model. But anyway, she does a good job. And then they so Beth takes the little girl. They're like, we're gonna leave. They can't take the stairs because it's established that, you know, the stairs just are gone, you know. You look and it's like there's no stairs, and then they freaking take the elevator, and the elevator was able to close, but it couldn't go down because it was already janked up from whatever it did to the mom, but then it started to fill up with blood, and it was like, what the fuck? But obviously the weight of the blood, you know, in the elevator caused the whole thing to go all the way down to the basement floor, and then it freaking just busts open, and very shining kind of thing with the blood. They're covered. The little girl is like, am I dead? All that stuff. And then they're like, all right, we're gonna get out. We're gonna get in our station wagon, which just sucks because they didn't do the Oldsmobile that's in every movie, but the chainsaw that shows up in the parking garage scene is the color of the Oldsmobile instead of the red one that usually happens. So I'm like, okay, I get it, you know, but I was also kind of like, just put the Oldsmobile there instead of the station wagon you got. But I get it, you know, I get it. A little different. But yeah, so they're trying to leave, and of course, like, the gate kind of opens, and then, like, the girl, like, Beth goes through, and then the little girl gets caught in between, and the little girl gets, like, starts getting, like, taken away, and then, like, you know, Beth is, like, just trying to bust back in. There's a wood chipper it's weird that there's a wood chipper inside underneath the garage, but you know what, that's what the plot says so, and I went with it. And, oh, by then, because, like, they cut, like, the mom's arm off, and, like, the deadites just kind of, like, fused onto her, so it's, like, the mom, and then the son, the daughter, the dude with the shotgun, the cute neighbor guy, they all just went on, and she's, like, this, like, this body horror thing. It's like the movie The Void, where it's just, like, this multiple, like, very, like, Silent Hill thing comes, like, coming at you from, like, the fog kind of thing, and you're like, ah! You have to come out, and then they're just like, you know, she revs up the fucking, you know, chainsaw, and she tells the little girl to hit the button, and she's like, starts pushing, and it starts pushing the body into the wood chipper, and it just starts sucking in the body, and they're like, ah, put it, and it's like, you know, all that stuff, and you're just like, yay, you know. So, like, they survive it, and it's all good. They're like, oh, they leave. They're like, we're out. We're fucking off, obviously. And then, you know, you're like, okay, the movie's over. And then the movie shows, you know, some person, like, coming out of their apartment. And I was thinking about that. I was like, did no one else hear this the entire night? What did the other, like, 12 floors think of, like, the top floor yelling? Well, it was raining that night. And the woman who's, like, leaving, she's on her phone. She's like, yeah, I barely slept last night because, you know, like, the thunder kept me up and da-da-da. It's like, yeah, so no one heard it because all outside, all hell was breaking loose, and definitely on the 14th floor. And then she's just like, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then her friend was like, I think I want to take a rain check on this trip. I don't know, da-da-da. And then you realize the woman, oh, God. But then you realize she was going to take the elevator, and then it wasn't working. And then she took the stairs. You saw it said number 5. And then you realize that the woman that just came out of the apartment is the woman from the beginning of the movie. And you notice that the friend on the phone is the friend who was on, like, the pier at the lake in the beginning of the movie. And you're like, oh, okay, this is where the whole one day ago thing happens. So now she, blonde woman, soon to be deadite, is in the frickin', you know, basement garage thing, and she's just, like, about to go to her car, and then she sees, like, all the blood, you know, from the night, and then she's like, what the hell? And instead of, I don't know, I would just be like, boop, boop, and then get in my car, and I drive away, and someone else will deal with that. She had to go inspect, because that's what white people do, I swear to God. And so then she's out there, and she's just like, she was in her car, but then she came out, and it's like, just stay out, anyway, and then she's just looking around, there's like, phoom, phoom sound, and she's like, huh, and all of a sudden, you know, it's a, she's like, ah, you know, so you know, she got possessed, you know, and then the rest is, you know, how the beginning of the movie started, so, which, I'm fine with how they did that, because initially I was like, oh, you are not doing this, and then I'm like, alright, because it was luring you into being like, oh, it's another Cabin in the Woods kind of thing, as all the other movies are, but now they're like, no, this happens in an apartment, a shitty rundown apartment. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. I liked it as much as I liked the 2013 one. I liked this addition to it. You know, I like that they're not I like that they're not making it campy, but that the effects are just so good. I like that it's practical effects, you know what I mean? I like that it doesn't feel like, here's another one, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have that, like, Alright, you know, like I said, the Easter eggs are great. Oh god, the scene with the cheese grater, where the dead-eyed daughter just grabs it and just runs it over Beth, or Jill Valentine's, I call her, run over her leg, and you're like, ah! You know, you're like, ah! You know? Ah, so good. But, yeah, I'm glad there needs to be, like, even though this one and, like, was it Scream 6 was, like, the last other review I've done, and it's just, like, sequels of horror, I'm like, it's good. It's good that it's good. Unlike last year when I was just, like, losing my mind over the Texas Chainsaw one, you know? But anyway, that's it. Evil Dead Rise. Alright, cool.